Let me now introduce Phitsamay, who is the chair of the board for CIRAC. Phitsamay is also a teacher, a literary specialist, in addition to her being a research associate with the Education Development Center. Phitsamay.
Slight height change there. Your eyes are all adjusting, right? Good afternoon. It's the vertical challengeness of Southeast Asians. First of all, I would like to thank Congressman Inaosa and Congressman Honda for their continued support for strong educational policies for all students, and also like to extend my thanks to the Campaign for High School Equity for this opportunity to talk about Southeast Asian American English language learners. I'm truly honored to be here because as a refugee, you don't normally get to be up in the Congress, and so this is really a nice way for us to bring out the voices of the community. My name is Phitsamay, and I am also a doctoral candidate at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, as well as a research associate for the Education Development Center. I serve as the board chair for the Southeast Asian Resource Action Center. We're based here in Washington, D.C., and CIRAC is a national nonprofit that serves the interests of Southeast Asian American communities from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and we are a coalition partner for the Campaign for High School Equity. With my allotted time, I would like to briefly describe the Southeast Asian American community in the U.S., the barriers that our Southeast Asian American ELL students face, and some recommendations to address this issue. So hopefully you'll hear some harmony with what my comments are saying with Congressman Honda's remarks earlier as well. To date, Southeast Asian Americans from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam are the largest group of refugees to be resettled in the U.S. after the aftermath of Vietnam War. We're now totaling over 2 million and growing in size, and Southeast Asian Americans can be found in all 50 states across the U.S. As recent refugees, many Southeast Asians have never had a formal education, and that means that they also don't have the ability to read and write in some of their native language. So many of these Southeast Asian American households are linguistically isolated, and that means household members over the age of 14 years old have some difficulties with English. And the latest census figures show that of the 4% total U.S. population, there's 32% Cambodian, 35% Hmong, 32% Lao, and 45% Vietnamese American households who are linguistically isolated. Consequently, this means that many of the Southeast Asian American students come from homes where they speak a language other than English. So in the United States, only 19% of the U.S. population age 5 or over speak a language other than English. But in the Southeast Asian American community, that means it's 85% Cambodian, 95% Hmong, 88% Lao, and 84% of Vietnamese Americans age 5 speak a language other than English. That's the 2 million people that I was talking to you about earlier. Congressman Honda talked to you a little bit about the model minority myth, and that stereotypes that all the Asian Americans, right? Phitsamay, you're at Harvard, you're one of them, right? But what you're not seeing is the other Phitsamays, the other 2 million folks who are not at Harvard, because their needs are being masked by this model minority myth. And Southeast Asians are actually among the 5.5 ELL learners. And in fact, following Spanish, the second and third most spoken language for English language learners are Vietnamese and Hmong. 5.5 million. Number 2 is Vietnamese, and number 3 is Hmong. But when we talk about ELL, we hear Spanish, but we don't hear about these others. So I'm not one that does well with math. So if someone could figure out how much the 5.5 is, then you would know that there's still a sizable community. And like all the other ELL students, Southeast Asian American students face the same educational barriers. They're trying to learn a new language, but they're also trying to learn education subject matter. Because if you're coming here to learn something and then all of a sudden I start speaking Lao, are you going to know what I'm saying? No, because I just spoke Lao and I only know one other Lao person in here. But imagine you being the student and your teacher only speaks English and you're trying to learn something and you're trying to get an education. But not only are you having difficulties here at the school, but also at home, the parents have the limited English language abilities, so they lack parental support for easy things like homework and school projects. So these lack of resources available to the ELL students outside the classroom means that they have to have access to high-quality teachers and services inside the schools and also in their communities, because that's the integral part to support this academic growth of ELL students. Properly trained teachers are better equipped to teach and prepare ELL teachers for success. Yet, less than 3% of teachers who are instructing ELLs have a degree in English and as second language or bilingual education. So Peter is one of the few teachers who are certified to teach them. In addition to the very limited number of quality teachers, there's also a lack of quality educational services. So only 8% of students, 8% of the 5.5 million ELL students are receiving extensive instruction designed to specifically meet their needs. And so what does that mean? 8% of the students are receiving 10 or more hours of ESL instruction in the content area that they need. And they're receiving less than 25%. So like 25% is like 2.5 hours of the instructional time in the native language. So what do you do? So the recommendations that we have, we feel that ELL students need quality education that serve as a strong foundation to prepare them for success beyond the elementary and secondary school years. And to build this foundation, we need to ensure that there's adequate funding allocated towards the K-12 ELL programs. But we also need to ensure that there are also other resources for community-based organizations in collaborations with the school, because these are the community members in the community organization who work with the parents. These community-based organizations can play a role in the holistic education of these ELL students by providing student support services, but also as a resource for the parents of the ELL students to become more engaged in their child's learning. Additionally, federal and state resources need to be allocated to strongly support the certification and training of the teachers of ELL students. There must be more certified teachers who are trained to teach ELLs. Currently, only 84% of the states offer English as a second language certification or endorsement, and less than 50% offer a dual bilingual language certification endorsement. So the standards of high-quality teacher under Title II of No Child Left Behind must be raised to include cultural competency skills and bilingual skills for those of the people who work with ELL students. Furthermore, there should be more investment in proper translation services so that the materials and programs are more accessible and practical for ELL students, their parents, and their communities. In conclusion, I stand with my colleagues here on this panel to stress the importance of ensuring that the needs of our ELL population is addressed and that it's been made a priority in education policy. But I urge all of you to go beyond English proficiency as the marker of success for ELL students and more towards academic achievement. The millions of ELL students, as is in all students, are our future, and we must wholeheartedly invest in their academic and professional success. Again, I thank you for this opportunity, and I welcome any questions at the end of the panel.